Our first speaker this afternoon is Stuart Gale. Stuart is the CEO, Chief Executive Officer of Resolute Mining Limited.
Thanks, Bill, and good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be here at the Africa Down Under presentation, and thank you very much to Peter and all the other organisers for making this possible. I had trouble with this last year, Bill. It's not hard, is it? Big green one. Look, I just think it's worth just recapping on Resolute's history in Africa, and that started back in 1996 with Resolute's investment in Tanzania and the Golden Pride mine, and then very shortly thereafter at Obertan in Ghana. And both of those assets were very successfully developed and operated over a period of time. We then moved on in 2004 to acquire Syama, and of course we're still running Syama to this day. I think fantastic acquisition also a couple of years ago of the Mako asset in Senegal. It's been a terrific mine for Resolute, and it was also very positive for the Toro Group before that, but generating good cash flows for us at the moment. And of course, more recently, we sold the Bibiani mine, which we acquired back in 2004. So that was an asset that was on care and maintenance for a period of time, and was one of those assets where we spent a lot of time and effort and money investing in the community, and managed to get the Gold Stars into the Premier League in Ghana. So that was a really positive outcome for us. That's the sale of that is, and also the Gold Stars. 12 months ago, roughly, since I presented to ADU, and it's been, 2020 was a really busy year for all of our assets and our operations. Of course, with COVID and some of the challenges that we experienced, particularly from a political standpoint in Mali. But that sort of continued on since I last spoke. So if we were to consider Resolute and reflect on the last 12 months, I think it's really important to note that there's been a number of key changes in personnel at the board level, where we've seen Peter Sullivan retire after sort of 10 or so years on the board, and 10 or so years as an executive, as a CEO of Resolute. So he's been replaced on the board by a gentleman called Adrian Reynolds, who brings a lot of African geological mining experience to the team. So in actual fact, Adrian was an employee of Randgold and worked at the Syama mine for a period of time. But also we've got a new COO, we've got a new CFO, Doug Warden, who started 2 days ago, and we've got a number of key executives who have also been appointed. It's been really important to think about things a little bit differently, and thinking about things a little bit differently in the COVID world has seen us adopt a practice of employing fewer Australians, more people who are based in Africa we can bring in either locally or from places like South Africa and also from Europe to support the technical challenges that we have at the sites. I think over this period of time, we've also seen, we've started to see some of the green shoots flow through from at our operations, in particular at Syama. So I'll touch on Syama, but we've seen some of the highest performance from the underground mine and through the processing circuits over the last quarter or so. So that's really encouraging from an operations perspective. As well as that, there's been a number of productivity and efficiency initiatives which have been adopted. These are things that have been identified for a while, but really only just starting to hit their straps. So that's really positive. Tabakoroni, we've updated Tabakoroni as at Syama, and we've updated the resource there. We're going to need to update it again fairly shortly. So we get great drilling results that we'll touch on. And importantly, we've started the repayment journey. So during the June quarter, we repaid about $30 million from debt. So that's a really good start just in terms of the overall balance sheet improvement and strategic management of the company. Of course, Bibiani was a little bit of an interesting one over the course of this year. We'd completed a sale almost with a Chinese company called Chifeng. Things changed, but ultimately we've been able to conclude that transaction with the Asante Group. It's a Canadian miner, but with strong Ghanaian interests. So that was a really positive completion on that transaction. Just touching on our production profile over the last little period. I think what's really important to pick up from this is, first of all, the average price that we've received has improved significantly. So, our realised prices during the first 6 months were $1,733 an ounce. We've managed to improve our forward contracts and our hedge book significantly over the last little period of time, and that's reflected in that average price. We can see the improvement that started to flow through at the Syama underground mine, which is the dark coloured bars there. So sort of a 20% increase from the second half of 2020 into the first half of 2021. And then also you'll see that the Mako production dropped back a bit, which was expected because we're undertaking a cutback there at the moment, which is to extend the mine life by a couple of years. Just touching on the key metrics from the half year. Our half year results came out last Friday, so I feel obliged to mention a couple of them. Obviously, our revenue was $260 odd million from gold sales of 152. You'll note the 152 and the 163 are a bit different. We had bullion that was built up, just a timing issue there towards the end of June. EBITDA of 78 mil for operating cash flows of 69 mil. We had to take a few impairment losses, unfortunately, so we had some significant non-cash charges, which is an accounting function that flowed through to result in a net loss there. But I think the really important takeaway from this slide is we have significant resource and significant reserve. Now, the majority of that sits within Syama. Those numbers, the 8.5 million ounces of resource, is after taking out the Bibiani reserve and resource as well, that accounts for the sale of Bibiani. So a really significant resource position. Just touch very, very briefly on the balance sheet. As I said, we repaid $30 odd million. You can see our debt maturity profile. It sits there as a gross number at the moment of $280 odd million. We have flexibility from a refinancing that was complete in March last year, and the flexibility resides in the revolving credit facility that we put in place at that point. So that revolver sits there at 130, the capacity of 150, and we can use that to pay down and draw back, depending on what we might need it for. But the very clear objective is to be repaying debt from our operating cash flows. The hedge book that you can see there looking forwards, or the forward contracts, again, improved quite a lot over the last little period of time. So sitting at forward contracts of 88,000 ounces at an average price of $1,721. So not too bad. And we're taking advantage of opportunities around zero cost collars as well, which is just something that is a point in time we might be able to get some good ones of those. Important as well, just to remember that we've got the Bibiani sale process. We've received $30 million from that. We've got $60 million remaining. That'll come over the next 12 months. And also from the Ravenswood sale, which was completed in March last year, we've got another $250 million of cash to flow through from that, and that'll start to flow in March 2024. So it's a couple of years away, but I think that's something that flies a little bit under the radar when people look at the valuation of Resolute. We also published earlier in the year our life of mine. So this was just a quick snapshot of our production profile out for the next 10 or so years. I think, again, the takeaway from here is that the Syama sulphide operations have a long life. So they sit there sort of over the next 10 or so years at some pretty reasonable numbers. We're still working to extend our oxide production. As it stands at the moment, the oxide production wraps up in around 2023, although Bruce Mallard and the exploration team had some fantastic drill results, which you might have seen come out last week, which are looking to extend that oxide life. And as well as that, we're getting some great results at Tabakoroni, and we'll touch on those as well. Long life, $1,000 or so all-in sustaining cost type producer. is the takeaway from that slide. Really important as well, just to touch on a few of those key initiatives. There's been a number of things which we're just starting to see the benefit flow through at this point in time. Some of these things have been identified. On-stream analysers, cleaner cells on the sulphide circuit have been things that we've been looking to put in place for a little while now, but we're just starting to see those the benefits of that understanding flow through. So these are a number of the key things that we're starting to get the benefits from, and we're expecting to continue to get improved throughput, particularly at the Syama sulphide processing. Just turning specifically to our assets now in Mali, and also I'll touch on Senegal as well. A very quick snapshot of Syama. Syama sits there with 7.6 million ounces of resource. But as I said, we'll be updating that as we bring on some of the improved drill results that have been recently published. As it stands at the moment, we've invested a significant amount of money in the infrastructure at that site, and we're really yet to capitalise on that. So I think that we've got a lot of upside in terms of the actual underground mine that's now up and running and producing well, and the investments that have been made in the sulphide and oxide processing plants. So a lot of capacity that sits there. In particular, just touching on a couple of the highlights over the last quarter, and important to note that the underground mine had its best production performance during the June quarter, so producing a little over 700,000 tonnes of material, and the sulphide processing circuit was well and truly able to cope with that. So pleasingly, we were able to get the mill operating at its highest performance level, and also pushing more tonnes through the roaster. So starting to get all of those sequencing components aligned that ultimately drive performance from that sulphide operation, and also at the oxide plant, the actual oxide processing was really good as well, and also a record. So the challenge that we had in the quarter just gone, unfortunately, was just around grade. So our focus now is on grade and making sure we're mining to the grades that we need to be mining to. We maintain that production performance, we maintain that improvement, and we get the grades, and there's no reason to think we shouldn't get the grades. We should expect a pretty significant improvement from the Syama operations. Also really pleasing to see the completion of the hybrid power station. This is another improvement initiative that's been put in, that's been, I guess, a couple of years in the making. And it's great to get that finally sorted out now. You can see the three power stations, 10 megawatt power stations down there with the chimneys attached, the fuel storage facility up on the left-hand corner. So that's all very good. It should cut our emissions by 20-odd%, and we're targeting to get 40% cost improvements from that power station over the life of that asset. Just touching on the exploration side of things, I think it's really important to understand that we've got a highly prospective greenstone belt at Syama that we've got full control over. So it's probably a little hard to see from this presentation, but you can see Syama. Well, I can't even see it from here, but it's up in the top, towards the top third of the pictorial there. But we also go a long way down to the south. In particular, you can see Tabakoroni, which is about 30-odd kilometres from Syama. Pleasingly, we've had some really great drill results come through from Tabakoroni recently. So Tabakoroni's been fantastic. The south and Namakan and north open pits have been were great for Resolute over the last few years. We're back there now. We're mining oxides now at the Splay and the Gap pit, which is just to the north of the north pit. But you can see those hot zones there in the underground. So that southern lens is shaping up really well. It remains open at depth and also along strike. So we're really positive about this, and we're continuing to drill. Obviously focused towards the south at the moment, but also there's a bit of excitement up to the north as well, and those areas remain open also. The results that were released last Wednesday have not been factored into our resource, so I think we'll continue our drilling work there and provide an update around Tabakoroni and also the rest of Resolute towards the end of this year. Pleasingly as well, we've had some really positive hits in the north, up around alpha, beta, BA01 and also A21, which is not reflected in here, but some really positive oxide developments, and that gives us, again, a lot of excitement about extending our oxide development and production over, potentially another year or two. So, that's important for us because we want to make sure that we've got as much oxide out of Syama as we possibly can before we start the investment phase at Tabakoroni. So that's going along really well, and I expect that our operations will be moving north fairly shortly. Just turning to Senegal, as I said, fantastic acquisition a couple of years ago. It's a great asset that delivers on target day in, day out. So we very rarely talk about Mako, and we probably should be talking Mako up more and more because that asset has continued to generate really positive cash flows for us. It's a fairly short mine life. We've got 6 years left on it. We've been able to extend that by 2 years, and we're undertaking a cutback at the moment, which gives that extension. So the exploration team and the operations guys are going well in terms of that overall cutback, and we'll continue to look at how we can capitalise on near mine development opportunities. But look, it's progressing well. We're around $1,000 a tonne all-in sustaining cost even through this cutback phase. So very pleased with the results from an operation perspective at Mako. But then the important thing is, whilst we've been able to get an extra 2 years from Mako, we really need to be focusing on what the next phases of development in Senegal are. And pleasingly, we've had some good near mine hits just to the northwest of the existing Mako mining area. But we've also entered into a few joint ventures, and we have some reasonably exciting near mine prospects that we're expecting to be able to do some exploration on, identify some resource and extend the mine life at Mako beyond those 6 years. Really quickly, just touching on our exploration portfolio, we've got some ground in Guinea. Guinea's obviously very prospective at the moment and in the media, so it's very early stages for Resolute. We'll keep working on these areas, but I think our focus in the near term is certainly around our operations and making sure that we've explored all of the near mine asset opportunities that we have at both Syama and also at Mako. You'll note that we have some strategic investments in a number of exploration companies. So we like the story of each of these companies, Justin, very much, and we're very pleased to hold these positions. It gives us exposure to different exploration, different management teams, which is positive. Touched on Bibiani, also touched on Ravenswood, just fleshes out the Ravenswood numbers, and I think let's not forget about those numbers. They're progressing well. The $50 million Aussie dollar promissory note earns a 6% due in March. There's a $50 million promissory note on gold price and production. The acquirers of Ravenswood are progressing pretty well, so there's no concerns around them hitting those targets. And we also share in potentially any upside that might arise as a result of a potential liquidity event from EMR. Just touching on sustainability, really clearly it's our focus to ensure that we're operating with the communities as efficiently as we possibly can. It's really pleasing that we've been able to have in excess of 1,100 locals vaccinated in conjunction with the Senegal and the Malian governments over the last little period of time. So that's a fantastic program. It's great for the communities, it's great for our workers, and therefore it's great for us. So that's something that we'll continue to be focused on and making sure that everyone's vaccinated. COVID's one of these things, isn't it, that you just have to work through. So, as we stand here today, we'll be operating with a number of people who have COVID on our sites, and I think we're running and we're operating and we're managing the health of those people really well. I think really importantly as well, from an environmental perspective, we spend a lot of time and effort to ensure that whatever we do, we don't have any negative impacts on the environment around us. Really pleasing to note that at Mako, at the Nicolo National Park, we are seeing some really positive, or we're monitoring wildlife movements, and that's great. So that's an important part of the team at Mako and what they're up to. The community engagement's been really positive as well, certainly from an education perspective, helping with agriculture, fish farming, those sorts of things is really important. And the team, in particular, I would call out the team at Syama for the work that they've done in the local communities over the last little period of time, and the effort that they've put in. We've got really good and improved community relations, which can only stand us in good stead for the future. And of course, we measure ourselves against the World Gold Council Responsible Gold Mining Principles. That's our measure in terms of our performance. We have our performance externally monitored, audited, if you like, and we're well and truly on target in terms of delivering against those principles by 2023. So that's obviously really important, as well as we need to continue to be reporting on sustainability and environmental aspects. So I guess where to from here for Resolute, and really it's around capitalising on that significant investment that we've put into our assets in Mali and Senegal. There's been significant investment. We've got a really strong asset base. We've been working really hard with our people to ensure that they've got the system, the process to deliver a consistent performance day in, day out. So it's not terribly big and exciting, but it's a real fundamental focus that we have on being consistent and reliable day in, day out. We deliver on those, we manage our costs, we pay down our debt, and unlock that near mine exploration upside. And that's the reality, is we have a lot of near mine exploration upside. So that's where our focus is in the near term, get the balance sheet under control, and we move forwards. So I think with that, Bill, I'll leave it there.